Hola amigos, bien o no, y saludos desde Inglaterra. Um, Hoy el tema es improvisar, improvise, casi en caso con el vídeo de hoy, porque solo un minuto antes estoy pensando cuál es el tema de hoy, y eso es el tema de hoy. So, improvise, um, which really means to trust that you have something to say and that you can think of something to say when all you have to start is the topic. So you haven't prepared the script, but you know what the topic is. So in this case, to improvise, what shall we say? Um, Thinking back to what we talked about yesterday. So in many ways, some of our fear when we speak in a foreign language is that we will not be fluent. We will not have clever, sophisticated things to say. Now that might be true, but I would argue generally, as long as you're clear in what you're trying to say, even if we go as far as to have to improvise a conversation on a topic we understand, the fact that we're going to talk to other people who are themselves fluent in the new language, as long as our thoughts are fairly logical, fairly sequential, something that people can generally follow where you're trying to go with that argument or your thoughts, any lack of vocabulary they'll be able to help you with, because for them listening, or for us as native speakers listening to you trying to put your thoughts together, we're following with you. It's a bit like a crossword puzzle. We're getting clues, and if you get stuck for a word, we're likely to help you to find that word by suggesting, do you mean this word? Because for us it makes sense within what you've been trying to say. So at this point, it's really trusting your audience or the person you're talking to that they're also interested in what you're going to talk about, and they want to find out the end of the story too. So if you trust yourself to give yourself a few moments to get your thoughts in order, and again, this is not, you don't need to rush in this sense, just think carefully, okay, this is the topic we're talking about, I'm looking at these kind of things I would like to say. You can always politely interrupt the people you're talking with to make sure that that's the direction the thing we were generally talking about. You could ask some other questions. Sorry, could you just explain a bit more about what you were saying? Get some more information, make sure you've understood it. If you're going to offer your opinion, remember, as long as it's fairly sequential, you don't have to have a particularly sophisticated way of saying it necessarily. Because if you're missing vocabulary, the other people in the conversation will generally assist you by giving words you might need to fill in the gaps. So it's about not being frightened to improvise when it's your turn to talk. So as long as your ideas are fairly obviously sequential, we can follow what you're talking about. And you don't have to make it that complicated. Just start with one part of what you wanted to say, get to the end of that, see if there's any other questions, progress from there. Really, the idea when we have to improvise is to keep it really simple. Now, obviously, that's the bit that feels frustrating because you don't feel fluid, because you have to kind of think a bit harder to think of the words. But sometimes that's perhaps because you're trying too hard to translate in your head. So I would advise you to try really hard to forget about doing the translation in your head. Trust that you have vocabulary you need amongst the words you've already understood to give some expression of what you want to say, and see what you get back from the other people you're talking to. If it's clear that this has become something that's confused, ask some other questions to see what the other person really meant. And again, it's a conversation, so they can give you more information. Then if you realise, no, I misunderstood, what I meant to say was this, there's a bit of that. But there is that point where you have to kind of jump. You have to get out of your head, take those words off the page, improvise, just a bit. Can be quite scary, I know. I wouldn't recommend this perhaps for complicated conversations, particularly not perhaps technical conversations. You might need a prompt, but even if you think you need a few prompts, if you limit it just to a few key words or the ideas you need to talk about, you'd be surprised how much you can improvise around that. Try it. Pick a topic you know lots about. See if you can reduce that to 3 or 5 key ideas. Just put down the words that relate to those key ideas. See how much you can say, just remembering the sequence of those 3 or 5 key ideas. Something to try. Déjame saber en los comentarios, como siempre. But for now, we'll say cheerio.